I never saw it coming. At 60 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. After decades of marriage to Edward, I thought our lives were set. We had raised 2 children, put them through school, and built a life together that seemed solid. I had supported his career, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, and always put him and our family first. But one morning, everything came crashing down. It started like any other morning. The house was quiet, just the hum of the coffee machine and the sound of my slippers against the wooden floor. Edward had already left for work, as he did most mornings. Never a word of affection, never a glance in my direction. I had grown used to it, the silent routine that had developed over the years. But that day, something felt off. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The mail arrived around noon. A thick envelope stamped with a law firm's logo lay on the kitchen table. I knew it wasn't a simple bill or some form of junk mail. My hands trembled as I tore it open. I skimmed through the contents at first, but then I saw it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My breath caught in my chest. The words blurred before my eyes. I read it again, hoping my mind was playing tricks on me, but no. There it was in black and white. Edward was filing for divorce. I felt a wave of dizziness hit me. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of mistake, some misunderstanding. How could Edward, after all these years, do this to me? He didn't even have the decency to tell me himself. I thought we were partners in this life. But here I was, alone in the kitchen, holding the papers that would change everything. The petition wasn't just a divorce. No, Edward demanded full custody of our home and our assets. The house we had bought together, the home I had spent countless hours making a sanctuary for our family, was now something he wanted to take away from me. But what stung more than anything were the accusations. According to Edward, I had been a failed wife and an unfit mother. Failed after everything I had done, after all the sacrifices I had made. I had spent the best years of my life supporting him, running the house, taking care of our children. How could he say such things? The shock left me numb. I couldn't understand how the man I had loved for so long could turn against me so coldly. He was 65, 5 years older than me, but in that moment, he felt like a stranger. I had given up so much of myself for him and this family, and now, at this stage in my life, he was ripping it all away. There was no kindness, no warning, just cold, calculated demands. I felt powerless. I felt lost. The man I had devoted myself to no longer saw me as a partner, but as someone to be discarded. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to ask him what had happened, but all I could do was sit there, staring at the petition in my hands. My life, everything I had worked for, seemed to have come undone in a matter of seconds. Have you ever experienced a betrayal in a long-term relationship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I couldn't sleep that night. The petition haunted me, echoing in the silence of the house. The worst part was that Edward hadn't even bothered to speak to me about it. He hadn't even said goodbye that morning. His coldness was no longer just a quiet routine, it felt calculated. I began to question everything. Had this been building for years? Had I missed the signs? As I sat in the living room, I looked around the house I had worked so hard to make a home, the walls that held the memories of our children growing up, the rooms filled with the laughter and the chaos of family life. I never imagined this would be the end. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt cold and empty, just like Edward. I began to replay the years in my mind, trying to pinpoint when things had started to go wrong. Edward's late nights at the office, his long business trips, his disinterest when he was home. These weren't new, but now they seemed deliberate. How many times had he brushed me off, ignored my attempts to connect, or even belittled me in front of our friends? I had excused it all, thinking it was just stress, just the demands of his career. But now I saw it clearly for what it was: a growing detachment, a calculated effort to push me away. Heartbroken, I started going through our financial records. I had always trusted Edward to handle the money. It wasn't that I was clueless, he just took control, and I never thought twice about it. But as I sifted through bank statements and credit card receipts, my stomach dropped. There were so many withdrawals from our joint account. Small amounts at first, but then they started to add up. Edward had been taking money, transferring it to accounts I didn't recognize. For months, he had been systematically draining our savings. Each line I read felt like a betrayal. He had been planning this for so long, and I hadn't seen it. He knew he was going to leave me. He was preparing for a life without me, with someone else. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of it all. And then, as if the petition wasn't enough, another letter arrived from Edward's lawyer. This one hit me like a punch in the gut. Mental instability. That's what they were accusing me of now. Edward claimed that I was unfit to manage our finances or care for our home. The man I had spent decades with was now painting me as someone incapable of handling my own life. He had gone further than I ever imagined, and the sense of betrayal deepened. It wasn't just the house or the assets he wanted. He was trying to take everything from me, even my self-worth. I had never imagined Edward would go this far. He wasn't just seeking a divorce. He was attempting to destroy me. I thought we had built something together, something that couldn't be torn down. But it was all just an illusion. The world felt like it was closing in on me. The man I had trusted with everything, the man I had sacrificed my career for, had carefully plotted this. I had been blindsided. I couldn't stop shaking. How had I missed it? Why had I allowed myself to believe that everything was fine? I thought I knew Edward, but now I didn't recognize him at all. How would you feel if you suddenly had everything you worked for stripped away without warning? Tell me in the comments section. I didn't want to admit it, but I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on me. Edward's betrayal was one thing, but what hurt the most was the feeling that I was completely alone. For weeks, I had been drowning in the paperwork, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. But there was one person who hadn't turned away: Clara, my daughter. She had always been my rock, the one person who never stopped believing in me, even when Edward's coldness pushed us all away. It wasn't long before Clara started noticing things that I hadn't. She was more attuned to the little things, more aware of Edward's behavior. He had always been distant with me, but with Clara, he had never acted this way. She told me she had seen him acting strange lately, checking his phone in secret, having quiet conversations behind closed doors. I didn't know what to think. Was he already seeing someone else? I had suspected it for some time, but I didn't want to confront it. Then, one afternoon, Clara came to me with something that changed everything. She had been spending more time at home, trying to figure out the mess Edward had made, and what she uncovered shook me to my core. She had secretly recorded conversations she'd overheard between Edward and Sophie, a woman I didn't recognize at first. Clara had been suspicious of Sophie, especially when she found out Sophie was the expert witness Edward had hired to testify against me. The recordings were damning. In one, Edward was discussing the divorce strategy with Sophie, talking about how he would manipulate the system to make me appear mentally unstable. Sophie, who claimed to be a child psychologist, was helping Edward plan how to portray me as unfit to care for our home and finances. They discussed the photos of the house, the credit card charges, everything. It was all part of a carefully crafted lie. The betrayal stung harder than anything I had felt before. Not only was Edward planning to take everything from me, but he had enlisted the help of someone else to destroy me. And the worst part, Sophie wasn't just any witness. She was the woman who had been helping Edward, guiding him through this malicious plan. I hadn't just been betrayed by Edward. I had been manipulated by someone I thought could never harm me. As Clara handed me the recordings, I felt a mix of disbelief and fury. My heart ached for the mother who had tried so hard to protect her family, only to be betrayed by the very man she had spent her life loving. But amid all the pain, something shifted inside me. Clara's voice, steady and sure, reminded me that I wasn't alone. "I'm with you, Mom," she said, her hand on my shoulder. "We'll expose him. We'll show everyone who he really is." It was the first time I had felt like I had a chance. For the first time since all this started, I wasn't just the victim. I was ready to fight, ready to take back what was mine. I looked into Clara's eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Clara smiled softly. "You're stronger than you think. You're not alone, Mom. You never were." With Clara by my side, I finally felt like I could stand up to Edward. The battle wasn't over, but I had a new strength, one that came from the love and loyalty of my daughter. The courtroom felt like a battlefield, every word a weapon, every glance a challenge. As I sat there, my hands clammy in my lap, I couldn't help but feel small. Edward's lawyer, Cromwell, was a smooth-talking, well-dressed shark. He knew exactly how to manipulate the situation to his advantage. The first move was a set of photos, each one showing a part of the house that had been photographed out of context. A messy kitchen, a laundry basket overflowing, a toy left on the floor. The way they were presented made it look like I had let the house fall apart, that I was negligent and lazy. Edward's lawyer painted a picture of me as someone who couldn't manage the most basic household responsibilities. Every photo was a strike to my heart. Those were the moments when I had been sick, tired, overwhelmed. But no one cared about the context. All that mattered were the images, the false impression of a wife who had failed to care for her family. I wanted to stand up and scream that it wasn't true, that I had always been a dedicated wife and mother, that the mess was temporary and the chaos was part of life. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come, and every time I looked at Edward, I saw the man I had trusted, now playing the part of a victim with no remorse. Then came Sophie, the so-called child psychologist who had been hired to testify against me. She spoke with such conviction, her calm voice like a sharp blade. She claimed to have observed me interacting with our daughter, Zariah, at public places, making it seem like I was emotionally unstable, prone to outbursts, and not fit to raise our child. She said I showed signs of neglect, that my behavior was damaging to Zariah's psychological development. It was hard to sit there and listen to Sophie twist everything I had done for our daughter into something dark and unhealthy. She described a day at the mall where, according to her, I had shouted at Zariah when she had wandered off. What she didn't say was that Zariah had nearly stepped into the path of an oncoming cart, and I had grabbed her to pull her back, terrified she would get hurt. But Sophie's observations had been made from a distance, taken out of context, and twisted to fit Edward's narrative. I could feel the weight of the room pressing down on me. Every word they said was pushing me further into the corner. Was this what my life had become? A courtroom filled with lies, with people who didn't know me or understand the sacrifices I'd made? It felt impossible to fight back. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. But then, as I sat there, ready to give up, I saw Clara. She was sitting in the gallery, her face tense. It was then that I noticed the subtle nod she gave to Attorney Abernathy, my lawyer. A few moments later, my heart leapt into my throat. Clara stood up, walked toward the judge, and handed him a USB drive. The room fell silent as Clara spoke. "I have something important to share with the court," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "This is the recording of conversations between my father and Sophie. They planned everything. They planned to destroy my mother's life." I couldn't breathe as the courtroom watched the video play. Edward's face appeared on the screen, talking with Sophie, discussing how they would manipulate the court case. They spoke about how to fabricate evidence, how to make me seem unfit. They were laughing at my expense, discussing how easy it would be to ruin me. The bombshell hit like a tidal wave, washing away the lies Edward had carefully built. The video exposed his plan for what it truly was, nothing more than a conspiracy to take everything from me. For the first time in the entire trial, I saw hope. The tide had shifted, and this time the truth was on my side. Edward's cold smile faded as he realized his carefully orchestrated plans were falling apart. "Do you think the justice system is fair when it comes to family cases, or is it often manipulated by those with power?" The silence in the courtroom was deafening. All eyes were on the screen, on the video that Clara had revealed. I had been holding my breath since Clara handed over that USB drive, but now it felt as if the whole world had stopped moving. This was the moment. The judge had ordered the video to be played, and as the first frame flashed on the screen, I felt the tension in my chest begin to lift. This was it. The truth was finally coming to light. The video began with Edward and Sophie sitting in what looked like the living room of our home. The same room where we had shared so many meals, where we'd laughed with our children, now the backdrop for their betrayal. Edward's voice was clear and confident, the same voice I had trusted for decades, now filled with cold calculation. "I've got everything in place," Edward said, his tone smooth, almost smug. "Once the trial starts, we'll have her exactly where we want her. All we need is Sophie's testimony, and those photos, those will make her look like she's completely fallen apart." Sophie, sitting beside him, nodded, a knowing smile on her face. "I'll make sure the psychologist's report is airtight," she said. "We'll paint Margaret as emotionally unstable, unfit for the responsibility of managing her finances or caring for her daughter. It'll be a done deal." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Edward had been plotting this for months, manipulating every moment of our marriage, every argument, every disagreement, just to have the upper hand in this divorce. My heart broke again, but this time it wasn't just for me. It was for everything he had taken from us. He wasn't just trying to destroy me. He was trying to destroy the family we had built, the love we had shared, and the future I had fought for. The video continued, showing Edward and Sophie discussing how they would use the photos of the house, those images of a messy kitchen and overflowing laundry, to make it look like I was negligent, lazy, and unfit. The way they spoke about me as if I were some project they could dismantle piece by piece made my stomach churn. I had spent my entire life supporting Edward, trying to keep everything together, and now here he was, using me as a pawn in his game. But then the video took a turn. Edward, with a sneer in his voice, said, "It's easy, Sophie. Margaret's always been so trusting. She'll never see it coming. I'll make sure she gets emotional in court. She won't be able to control herself. Once she cracks, no one will believe her. They'll believe you, they'll believe us." That was when the full weight of his betrayal hit me. Not only was he manipulating the situation, but he was intentionally provoking me to get a reaction. He was setting me up to look unstable, so Sophie's testimony would seem even more credible. The room was dead silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Edward's face had drained of colour. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting around, desperately trying to find a way to salvage what was left of his plan. But it was too late. Sophie's calm demeanour cracked as the video played on. She shifted in her seat, avoiding eye contact with the judge. Her carefully constructed professional persona began to unravel. It was clear now, Sophie wasn't just a witness, she was part of the scheme, a willing participant in a plan designed to ruin me. And that ruined her credibility in the eyes of everyone in the room. Edward's lawyer, Cromwell, who had been so confident just hours ago, now seemed panicked. He stood up, pacing the room as he tried to salvage his case. "Your Honour, this video is highly questionable. It's clearly an invasion of privacy. It cannot be used as evidence." But the damage had been done. The judge remained silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on Edward, then turned to Sophie, whose face had turned a deep shade of red. The realization settled over me. They had lost. As I sat there watching the chaos unfold, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that the truth was finally being exposed, that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the villain they had painted me to be. But anger, too. Anger at Edward for what he had done, for what he had tried to take from me, for the years he had spent plotting behind my back. The man I had loved, the man I had supported, was nothing more than a liar, a manipulator. But I also felt something else, pride. Pride in myself for not giving up, for fighting back. And most of all, pride in Clara, who had stepped up when I couldn't. She had given me the strength to keep going. Together, we were exposing the truth. The judge finally spoke, his voice grave. "This court will take a recess to consider the evidence presented. We will reconvene shortly." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, but I didn't care about the whispers. I had fought for my dignity, for my daughter, and I had finally taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. Do you think Edward got what he deserved? Leave a comment below with your thoughts on his downfall. The courtroom session was drawing to a close, but I felt like time had stopped. As the judge delivered his final ruling, it felt surreal, almost like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Edward's assets were frozen immediately. The judge made it clear that all the funds he had siphoned off to Sophie's accounts, the ones he had secretly drained from our joint savings, would now be returned. The weight of it all hit me in waves, and I had to swallow hard to keep the tears from falling. I had spent so many sleepless nights wondering how I would survive without everything I thought I'd built. The house, the savings, the future, gone. But now the reality was setting in. Edward had lost. Edward's charges of fraud, perjury and theft were officially on record. It was no longer just about a failed marriage. It was about the betrayal, the lies, and the manipulation that had been at the heart of everything he had done. His world, the world he had carefully constructed with lies and deceit, was crumbling. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one falling apart. The judge ruled that I would retain full custody of our home and, most importantly, our daughter, Zariah. The judge's words rang in my ears, but the satisfaction didn't come immediately. As much as I had won, as much as justice had been served, I couldn't shake the weight of the emotional toll it had taken on me. The scars from this betrayal weren't going to fade quickly. I had won the battle, but the war within myself, the battle to heal and rebuild, was just beginning. As the courtroom emptied, I felt the exhaustion in my bones. But the hardest part was still ahead, learning to live in the aftermath of everything I had been through. And that's when Clara, my brave daughter, took my hand. She had been the rock I leaned on, but now it was her turn to offer comfort. We walked out of the courtroom together, side by side. It felt surreal, this moment of victory that didn't feel like a victory at all. Clara and I found a quiet spot, away from the chaos, where we could talk, just the two of us. "Mom," Clara said, her voice soft but steady. "We did it. We made it through." I nodded, but the words wouldn't come. I felt like I had so much to say but didn't know where to start. The hurt was still too fresh, the betrayal too deep. "Do you think we're really okay?" I asked, my voice trembling despite myself. "I mean, I feel like I'm supposed to be relieved, but all I feel is exhausted and angry. I don't know how to move past all of this." Clara squeezed my hand. "You'll get there, Mom. It's going to take time, but we'll rebuild. We have each other, and that's all that matters." I stared out at the city skyline, letting the quiet moments settle around us. The victory in the courtroom was sweet, but it didn't erase the years of manipulation, the pain of feeling invisible, and the betrayal from the one person I had trusted most. "Clara," I said, my voice steadying, "I'm glad you were with me through all of this. You're my reason to keep going. I don't know what I would have done without you." "I'll always be here, Mom," she said, "no matter what." The truth hit me then. This wasn't just a fight for my home or for our future. It was a fight for my dignity, my sense of self, and for the relationship I had with my daughter. The road ahead would be long, and there would be days when I questioned everything. But I had come this far, and I wouldn't let Edward's lies define me anymore. The emotional toll of this battle wasn't something I could outrun. The scars from the betrayal would take time to heal, but with Clara by my side, I knew I could start the process, one step at a time. How can someone truly heal after being betrayed by someone they loved for so long? Tell me in the comments. It's funny how life has a way of throwing you into the unknown when you least expect it. A few months ago, I couldn't have imagined a future without the life I had spent decades building with Edward. But here I am, at 60, standing on my own 2 feet, embracing a new beginning. I never thought I would get here, but now I'm more certain than ever that the best chapters of my life are still ahead of me. Starting over hasn't been easy. Moving into a new home was a fresh start. But it also meant leaving behind years of memories, good and bad. The house Edward and I had shared was no longer a place of refuge. It was a reminder of everything I had lost. Clara and I found a cozy little apartment on the outskirts of the city, far enough from the old house to escape the toxic memories, but close enough to everything we needed. It's a small space, but it's ours. And every time I step through the door, I feel a sense of peace that I haven't known in years. But it wasn't just the home that needed to change, it was me. I had spent so many years putting my identity in the role of wife and mother that I had forgotten who I was outside of those titles. I wasn't just Edward's wife anymore, I was Margaret. And Margaret had dreams. Dreams I had put on hold for far too long. One of those dreams was cooking. I had always loved to cook, but I had never had the time to pursue it seriously. Now, with the support of Clara and the courage that had been building inside me, I decided to turn that passion into something real. I started a small catering business from home, baking everything from savory meals to decadent desserts. At first it was slow, word of mouth spread, and soon I had a few regular clients. The more I cooked, the more I realized how much joy it brought me. I wasn't just making food for others, I was making something for myself, something that nourished my soul. The business took off faster than I expected. It wasn't just about making money, it was about reclaiming my life, my purpose. For the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something that was entirely mine. I had built this from scratch, just as I had rebuilt my life. Clara and I spent more time together too. We laughed more, we talked more, and we dreamed more. I didn't have to worry about Edward's coldness or his plans anymore. I didn't have to question my worth. I knew now that I was enough. And with Clara by my side, I had everything I needed to move forward. One afternoon, after a busy week of catering events, Clara and I took a walk in the park. It was a peaceful, sunny day, the kind of day that felt like a fresh start. We sat on a bench by the pond, watching the ducks swim by. It was in that moment that I realized just how far I had come. The woman I was today was stronger than the woman I had been in that courtroom, terrified of losing everything. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had faced my worst fears and come out the other side, stronger and more alive than ever. As Clara sat beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, I knew we had made it. We had found a new life, one filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. And in that moment, I realized that 60 was just the beginning. I wasn't done yet. The best was yet to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.